So I thought I would read something from the Bhagavatam and try to get some inspiration for our Sankirtan festival that we're doing today. So I told Kishore Rani that I haven't really done book distribution so much. I did some book tables, so I'm not such a book distributor herself. She said that most of the people who speak here don't speak about book distribution, so I'm like, perfect, but I fit right in. No problem, I can do that. So we'll start with some prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So the verse I want to read from the Bhagavatam is Canto 6, Chapter 2, verse 38. It's actually the Ajamil story. So, Mamaham iti dehado hitvan nityartha dhilmatim dhasevano bhagavati shuddham tat kirtanadibhi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Simply because I chanted the holy name of the Lord, so this is Ajamil. This is the Ajamil story. This is Ajamil speaking now, or thinking to himself. It's one of those. Simply because I chanted the holy name of the Lord in the association of devotees, my heart is now becoming purified. Therefore, I shall not fall victim again to the false lures of material sense gratification. Now that I have become fixed in the absolute truth, henceforward I shall not identify myself with the body. I shall give up false conceptions of I and mine and fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Purport. How a living entity becomes a victim of the material condition is lucidly explained in this verse. The beginning is to misidentify the body as oneself. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita begins with the spiritual instruction that one is not the body, but is within the body. This consciousness can be possible only if one chants the holy name of Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and always keep oneself in the association of devotees. This is the secret of success. Therefore, we stress that one should chant the holy name of the Lord and keep oneself free from the contaminations of this material world, especially the contaminations of lusty desires for illicit sex, mating, intoxication, and gambling. With determination, one should vow to follow these principles and thus be saved from the miserable condition of material existence. The first necessity is to become free from the bodily concept of life. Om Gyanatimindasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumidam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vedasa Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanande. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shanivadi Paschatya Vishtani. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So this I was reading this section, and so this is basically, so I think most of us are familiar with the Ajamil story. So, Ajamil he was a very pure Brahmana, but became contaminated. His mind and consciousness became contaminated after he saw a man enjoying with a prostitute. His mind became disturbed, even though he was very pure, came from a great family. One moment, one incident corrupted his mind to such a degree that he gave up his wife. He started living with a prostitute, started killing, stealing, whatever it took to kind of maintain that lifestyle. Had children with this, prostitute. And towards the end, because he lived such a simple life, right? The Yamadutas are coming. And so I was thinking that if we're going to be out there, one conscious, I'm not saying that the people are Yamadutas, okay, so I already assuming what I might say. So, you can imagine that the Yamadutas are coming to get people. Because, people are living kind of crazy lives out there. We were living crazy lives, most of us were, before coming to Krishna consciousness. So, we can imagine the Yamadutas are kind of on their way. And we can see ourselves as the assistants of the Vishnu Dutas, out there, sort of. So that could be the consciousness that they're on their way and we're on our way out, right? To sort of inject some Krishna consciousness. So right before his death, he sees the Yamadutas, the messengers of the god of death, coming, and they're ripping basically the soul out of his body. It's got to be an interesting scene. And then, but Vishnu sends his messengers to stop them from doing that. Because when this was happening, he called out his son's name, Narayan. So, luckily he named one of his kids Narayan, right? So he called out Narayan, Vishnu sends his Yamadutas, and all of a sudden, he chants the holy name once, and the Vishnudutas have a big philosophical discussion with the Yamadutas. There's a philosophical debate taking place right when someone's dying. Like his soul's getting pulled out, and they're having a big debate. And I think the debate goes on for a little while. It seems like there's a serious philosophical discussion taking place, and he's trying to figure out which side he's going to end up on. He's really hoping you can imagine that Vishnudutas are going to win this one. So the interesting question that arises, or of course the Vishnudutas win that, and because of that, he lives, and then he goes into a sort of a mood of repenting and remorse that I've lived such a sinful life. I've identified with the body for so long, and he feels really grateful that he just got saved from this horrible thing that was going to happen. Because once they take you, it's pretty hellish, literally. That's not even a figurative. That's literally, it's hellish for a very long time. Because we don't know what he's going to undergo, what kind of suffering he's going to undergo when they take him. So, and I think one of the main things that we learn from what's relevant to us as we go out is that he heard the holy name once. He heard he chanted the holy name once. But there was a lot more going on than just, hearing the holy name once. So this may be, when we go out there, this may be the only time a lot of people hear the holy name. And we don't know when they'll remember this holy name again. We just don't know when the mind will bring it up. And this perfect example of this is the whole Gajendra story. Right? He's an elephant. Right? And we know that before you become an animal, from a human to an animal, you have to move the hellish planets to prepare you. So he was a king. I guess he went into the hellish planets, or I don't know how, or maybe he didn't, but he became an animal. Well, that means he's totally forgotten everything he studied. All the Vedic scriptures and everything else that he studied, he's totally forgotten all of that. But when the dangerous time comes, when the crocodile's pulling him in, he's all of a sudden able to offer prayers, really over the chances of something, not at the end of your life, but the next life as an animal, not even a human. The animal's not thinking in a language as far as a human language, as far as we know. We don't know what's going on in the brains. But he's remembering that and offering a lotus flower. So, I think that this is sort of what we are trying to accomplish, is inject a little Krishna consciousness into the people we're going to interact with. Give them the holy name, give them the book, and give them the association. One devotee, I got inspired to speak on this one because last night one devotee messaged me saying that it doesn't make any sense that he chanted the name once. So as I was saying, that last night one devotee messaged me saying it doesn't make sense that he chanted the name once and he's getting liberated. He's achieving this incredibly high goal. He goes back to Godhead once. And he's the devotees are chanting 16 rounds for so long, we're performing tapasya, and what's going on? How does it make sense? So it really made me think a little bit more, and I dove into this pastime a little bit to help answer this question for him. And it's explained that, first of all, it was a cumulative sort of, his work wasn't just that isolated incident. It was his life as a Brahmana. So his life as a Brahmana before he fell down, and his previous life, whatever spiritual activities, so it's cumulative. You take it all into account, you add it up, and that's how it works. So we look at it as just one thing where he chanted the name once, but that's not why he went back to Godhead. Because we only look at one life. So Krishna is adding up everything. He's keeping a supreme account. previous lifetimes worth of chanting the holy names, serving the devotees, reading the scriptures, going to the temple, worshiping the deities. There's a really big account. If we just look at one life, that's a really incomplete picture. You can't make a decision on, we can't judge anybody based on one life. First of all, we shouldn't be judging anyone anyways. So that's one thing, is the cumulative effort. So, again, we don't know, and also so when we go out there, someone may be acting crazy, someone may be, people start doing crazy things when they see Hari Nam going on and start dancing and they get excited or whatever. But also not to judge them, because we don't know what their life was like before. We don't know last life, if they got 99% there and then fell away. And maybe we're only 2% into our journey. It could be, we're sitting here in the temple, maybe somebody's coming out of a bar, but in their previous life, they may have gotten really close, like Ajamil saw something negative happen, boom, collapse for one lifetime, living sinfully, and all of a sudden, before the time of death, Krishna shows up in their mind, now they're going back to God, and we're sitting back with 2% only progress and judging them. Well, look, they came out of a bar. Well, we don't know where they came out before that, So the one thing is also when we're out there, not to think ourselves okay, I'm a devotee, I'm wearing tulsi beads, I got some tilak on my head, so therefore I'm better than this person who's coming out of KFC with a box of chicken, we don't know if we're actually better than them or not. Judging them makes us worse, but we're in that moment, actually. In that moment, we immediately take a lower step in Krishna's eyes. Who are you to judge? Because we don't know we really have no clue what they did before, what they're doing now, what their mindset is, what's going to happen at the time of death. Right? So one important lesson is for us to not be in that mood of judging them, while we're out there, because it's real easy, because people, do strange things out there, and they see spiritual things going on, they see us, and they really get excited and do some interesting things. And so the other thing is, in this pastime, in addition to how Ajamil actually got liberated, the other thing is, he was actually sitting there, listening. It's explained in one of the passages. He was actually sitting there listening to the whole dialogue taking place. So he's basically hearing Krishna Katha. He's in a painful situation, but that's the best time to hear it, actually. And his soul's kind of getting ripped out, so I don't even know what that must feel like, And he's sitting there listening to, because even the Yamadutas, they're advanced devotees. They're serving Yamaraj, so they're just not like materialistic people. So they're also pretty advanced in many capacities. So you've got Vishnu Dutas coming directly from Vaikuntha, and you've got the Yamadutas having a spiritual conversation. He's sitting there listening okay, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have nothing else to do right now. There's nothing good on, there's nothing else to do. You don't worry about anything else at that point other than just sit there and listen. So, he himself was a pretty captive audience. He had nowhere he was literally captive, actually. Right? So he was sitting there listening. He couldn't do anything. So the cumulative effort and hearing, and we know that in our tradition, really, hearing is also Shravan Kirtana, right? Maharaj attained liberation through hearing. Sukadeva Goswami, of course, he was already liberated, but through speaking. So hearing is what Bhaktisiddhanta told Prabhupada, that he told his disciples that, yes, I've noticed him because he listens very nicely. Bhaktisiddhanta mentioned that about Prabhupada. And before I think he was initiated, right? I've noticed him, he listens very nicely. So he was actually, if you think about it, he was listening to a whole Bhagavad Gita. I don't know how long that went on, but at the end of your life, because nothing else is important at that point. Your money doesn't matter, your home doesn't matter, even nothing really matters because you're in pain and your senses are alert, at least his were. So he was listening. So that's the second thing is cumulative effort, then he was listening. And so when we communicate or when we chant the holy names outside, people are going to be listening. Right? So they're going to be listening to the holy name. Maybe the only time in their life, maybe it's the 50th time they're hearing it, but the more we put in, it's all cumulative. Maybe they've passed by the Hari Nam 100 times, so it's 100 times. We don't know how that's going to translate for them in their consciousness when they die. We just don't know what that really means inside. So our goal is just kind of keep putting it in there. Just like we were passing by so many Hari Nam, so many temples in our previous lives that we could be here now, we can pass it forward, so to speak. Do it for others. And the third thing for Ajamil, so he was hearing the cumulative effect of all of his previous lives. Third thing was, as I explained, that he actually had the association of these devotees. Not the Yamadutas necessarily, I'm talking about the Vishnu Dutas. So he was hearing in the association of devotees. So that's also a very powerful thing. And this, hadn't really analyzed the pastime so well before until this devotee messaged me. He's like, what's going on? How does it work? Like, what? So I'm like, okay, let me see. I'm like, I listen to my discussions, and I'm already doing this a little research here. I'll talk about this. So the third thing is, at the time of death, he's associating with devotees, and not just devotees, like pure devotees sent from Vishnu. They look like Vishnu, they have 4 arms, they look like Vishnu, so they're reminding him of Vishnu. So, and also now, as, the servants of God, we're also trying to give our association to the people in general, just as in the past, many devotees have made themselves available for us. Just as they gave us their association, we're here, we don't have qualification to give anyone association, really, like to uplift people, at least I don't feel like I do. But still, because we're practicing, it's our goal, it's our duty to go out and give our association, to chant the names, to give the association, and to give them a positive impression of who we are and our tradition. Because people are going to form an opinion about us based on how we behave outside in public. Right? So that's something to also be thoughtful of. How are we behaving when we're out there? If somebody doesn't take a boat or walks by and makes fun of us, or maybe says something nasty, do we respond in a nasty way as well, or do we just sort of tolerate it and keep doing our service? And so that's something also to keep in mind, because if we respond to them, that means they somehow allow, they control our behavior by their own behavior, and now we're no better than them, and people are going to be like, well, what's the difference between the person sitting there distributing books or chanting and the person who said these crazy things? They both acted the same way, right? They both acted the same way, so what's the point? Why should I sit and listen to these guys when they act just the way the other person acted? So, there's something to think about as we are engaging with the public and the people outside, because that's also really important. That's where we want to give good association, and we also want to make a certain impression in their mind, which is positive. It's like Prabhupada would say, right, my disciples are perfect ladies and gentlemen. And being outside is the perfect time to remember that. Because at home, we do all our crazy things, we forget that. Okay, that's fine, maybe not really fine, but better to remember that at least before we go out, that we're perfect ladies and gentlemen. And Krishna will always send people to test us, and in our ability to be perfect ladies and gentlemen. Krishna will send people to agitate us and irritate us and poke us in different ways, that our crazy side may want to jump out and leap out, but that's the time when we have to remember, no, we're representing Prabhupada, we're trying to give association, and if we're acting crazy, then that's not association, then we're not really giving association. So that's something just to remember, especially when we're going out in public. We look presentable, we speak in a presentable way, we sing in a presentable way, and it really is, it's like we're trying to attract people to Krishna. And, if the soul is eternally blissful, then we should at least, even if we don't feel that bliss, like, Radha Swami says a lot, you just fake it till you make it, sort of, if you act enthusiastic, then you'll become enthusiastic. So we want to go out there as a service to our parampara, we're going to be enthusiastic as a service, at least as a service. And if it naturally comes and flows, it does. And, you can get some great reciprocation when you're out there. Krishna always sends people that'll just really appreciate it. They got a book, and you guys are out here. Thanks so much. We haven't seen you guys in a long time. This is the kind of stuff people always say. That people say, oh, I love your guys' food. You get some positive comments to both come. And so we just have to be ready for both. And then, the final component of this pastime is Ajamil. Not only that, he was, but that after he was saved, it's not that he just liberated. He still performs a lot of tapasya. He got association, he heard, but then he still went to Haridwar and performed tapasya and engaged in bhakti until the airplanes came down and gave him a first-class ticket to Goloka Vrindavan. So this is something that we've been hearing, we've been associating, and now we have to go to the tapasya, just like he did. And so for some of us, this may be blissful to go out, and for some of us, this may be more tapasya. And sometimes when you're out there, you can experience a little bit of both. Someone rejects you, you feel a little hurt, and someone says, hey, thanks, I've been looking for the Gita, or, I'm so glad you guys are chanting, I haven't heard this. Then, that's a little bit of something positive. Krishna sends both, but so this is it, we associate with each other, we go to the temple, Prabhupada gave us so much facility. Basically, I feel like we came into Krishna consciousness with a silver spoon in our mouth, right? Not like the devotees in the 60s, 70s, they're like, Mother Mati's lived out of a cardboard box while pregnant in London, we didn't have to go through any of that, I think, like, or the devotees, like, sometimes, like, you hear the story of Prabhupada in the train with his disciples in India, the train stops somewhere, Prabhupada says, okay, get out and start a temple here. All right, we didn't have to go through, like, Bhakti Swami chanting his rounds in behind the iron curtain in a bathroom stall, eating who knows what, while distributing thousands and thousands of books, risking his actual life and risking being tortured and ripped apart, literally, to distribute books. Right? All of us, we basically kind of got a book, wandered into a temple Sunday feast, ate a big mountain of prasad, and became devotees. That was our experience. We got really we ate mountains and mountains and mountains of prasad. Tapasya did we perform? Tapasya couldn't sleep because we ate too much. That was our tapasya in Krishna consciousness compared to what others went through. That was my biggest tapasya. Sunday feast, you're rolling around all Sunday night after that. So, or feet hurting too much because we danced and jumped up and down too much. That was our tapasya, basically. So so Prabhupada, it's incredible, right? Every time you think about what he did, it's just mind-boggling at the age of 70. When everybody's thinking of going to Florida, retiring to a warm place, he leaves the warm place and comes to a freezing cold, icebox like New York. It's just the opposite of what everyone else does. He gave us all of this, so I guess the little tapasya we can do is to once in a while go out, on the streets, or even in our office, or if you're in school, at school, or your family who may not be into it, but at the family wedding, we preach a little that. So as Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, I think it becomes our duty once in a while to at least keep the momentum going, try to help others in some capacity or another. And it's really powerful and makes it so much easier when we kind of go out together, because now there's a strength in numbers and we inspire each other. It's like Prabhupada's little army going out, to make a little difference in the lives of so many people that are out there walking around. And you can imagine the Yamabutas are coming, and you're like, okay, the Vishnudutas have sent us to chant and give books. So that could be kind of our meditation, fun meditation as we go out there. So anyways, I think that's, we'll stop right there. Do you do questions or just anything to go up? Or comment? Or suggestion?
Or wishes.
Huh?
Or wishes.
Wishes? Or wishes?
Or blessings.
Thank you very much. It's really powerful. It's like the first image about Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, and also this mood that we need to do some pay back, and we're all together in a small army and can influence someone's life today. It's really powerful. Thank you.
Okay,
Jai Jai.
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 Jai.